7:10 on Saturday, March 1st, 2014, and this is the Salim MuWakkil Show on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. You can also catch us streaming loud and clear by using iHeart apps on your smartphones or by directing your browser to WVON.com. However you got here, you've made it to the place where we sift the news of the world and try to provide some necessary context. All callers are my special guests, so it's important that we stay respectful. In fact, one of my goals for the show is to model respectful discourse. And, of course, we need your help for that. So, are you ready to flex those muscles in your mind? Because, family, if it's 7 on Saturday, it is time for Salim MuWakkil, live from WVON's Xfinity Studios. Well, the president's new initiative, My Brother's Keeper, certainly has churned up a lot of discussion. Some folks are questioning why it took the first black president so long to acknowledge the desperate plight of his fellow black Americans and took some action to remedy it. Others are grateful that he has taken the time to address the issues of black boys. They argue that he's been stymied in his attempts to reach out by an obstructionist Congress and a general electorate that is uncomfortable with race-specific rhetoric. His speech was very personal and confessional. He talked about how he one time, got high himself. He used that language. He got high. And then kind of, I guess, to offset any possible right-wing criticism of his gestures toward black youth, he went heavy, real heavy, again, on the politics of respectability, hectoring young black men about their own lack of responsibility and their need to get rid of excuses and get down to work. So, I guess he was doing that in order to balance the way the message was coming across to some folks, because, we know what happens whenever he speaks out in favor of African Americans. He gets enormous feedback and pushback from much of the electorate. But, the president, again, this thing that My Brother's Keeper is sponsored by a program out in Hinsdale. Presidents from Chicago and probably one of the most effective and dedicated organizations that deals with young men and has been dealing with young men for many years with little compensation is the brother who just left the air, Brother Philip Jackson, Black Star Project. So something that is absolutely commendable. There's no other word for it but commendable. And there may be some other words like superlative and whatnot, but Brother Philip Jackson has put in the work. His organization has proven itself beyond doubt, and yet he's being ignored by the President of the United States from his hometown. That's something I think we should be concerned about. And then the president kind of jumps over Philip and says that Rahm Emanuel is the one who hipped him to this mentoring program for black men. Rahm Emanuel, right? President Barack Obama. I don't know about that, brother. I mean, you want to speak up for him. He's a admirable cat in many ways, but man, the way he treats his own people in his own town, it leaves much to be desired, quite frankly. All right, the NFL is seeking to eliminate racial slurs on the field by proposing to impose this 15-yard penalty on anyone who utters a racial slur, probably the N-word, nigger. They probably are talking about is what they're trying to get rid of. Well, in my opinion, that won't work. What you would have if that was to go down is you got this number of mostly white officials. Most of the refs are white. There are a few black refs, but most of them are white. and other officials at the higher up level, ones who would be reviewing these calls, are, white officials policing the language of a predominantly black group of players. It's unworkable, quite frankly. What's more, it's hypocritical, because, the greatest racial slur in the NFL is the name of a team that represents the nation's capital, the Washington Redskins. Now, how many yards and penalties is that worth? Every time you say it is a slur. The whole team should be penalized for it. So if you're going to be consistent, or if you're going to really make a principled statement in terms of racial slur, start with the Redskins, folks. And let's not stop trying to be, grandstand and be politically correct for no reason. All right? Things are really heating up in the Ukraine. Man, looks pretty rough in that area of the world. Thanks in large part, quite frankly, to the EU and the U.S.'s provocative activity in the region, with the Endowment for Democracy and other so-called NGOs doing all they can to foment ethnic divisions and political discontent in the western part of Ukraine, trying to expand NATO and the EU, although they promised during the Bush era, they said they would stop. They would allow, Russia said it would allow Ukraine to exercise its autonomy and its independence if the EU and NATO refrain from expansionist policies. And ever since that agreement was passed, the EU and NATO have been doing nothing but expanding, trying to get as much of the former Soviet Union into their pocket as they possibly can. And the Ukraine is what they're really going for right now. It's no accident. This is happening, incidentally, just as Russia is basking in the glow of its very well done Olympics production. It seems as if the West is kind of trying to ruin or at least tarnish Russia's global successes, its recent global success. Right now, concern is high over the fate of the Crimea. It was a large peninsula in southern Ukraine, which is where the Russians' Black Sea Fleet is located, and many other military installations are in Crimea. In fact, this is Russia's only warm water port, so it's extremely important. And Russia has very few military outposts around the world. This one, these outposts in Crimea are among the only ones that they have outside of Russia. And this country is talking about, Russia is suppressing the independence of Ukraine, and this country has at least 100 bases around the world. Russia has one nation, one country where they have bases. This country has, hundreds of bases in many countries around the world. Talking about imperialism or trying to expand your dominance. The fears were intensified when groups of armed men took over Kiev, took over the parliament in Kiev, and then the first thing that they did was to take Russia off the list of official languages. How are the people in eastern Ukraine who speak Russian? Many members of many Ukrainians speak Russian. That's their native language. How are they supposed to feel when this group of nationalists in Kiev oust Russia from the list of languages? And Ukraine is noted for its fascist members. The Ukraine was one of the Nazi Party's most vigorous supporters at one point. Ukraine is known for its highly motivated fascist population, and so these ultra-nationalist Ukrainians are threatening the Ukrainians in the east, and so they've been taking over airports and mobilizing themselves to guard against that kind of what they fear is the attempt of the east of the west to take over. Viktor Yanukovych, who was the leader of the Ukraine, unpopular in the west, but very popular in the east. Although he wasn't that popular because he didn't resist the actions of these rebels effectively, so they feel a little disgruntled with him. But he's taking refuge in Russia, and he insists that he was ousted by what is a classic coup d'état, and that's what it looks like, from here, right? There was no official action. He was a duly elected leader, and they just ousted my man. Or the U.S. rejects that claim that he was ousted. They say that Yanukovych abdicated his responsibility and undermined his legitimacy by fleeing Kiev. He fled, and that's what happened. A good illustration of the deeper issue at stake is that the first duty for the new government. Second duty. The first duty was to delegitimize Russian. The second is to talk to the IMF. And Russia, which was engaged in building an alternative to the IMF regime, with the BRICS nation, was urging Yanukovych to hold off on the IMF negotiations. But now they're getting into it strong. They're trying to get the EU to become much more financially involved in Ukraine. And that's how they're attempting to undermine Russia's position of power in that part of the world. It's still, it's Cold War stuff. It really is. And it's despicable, really, especially for the president, because Russia has actually helped him in negotiations in many places. In Iran, Syria, the president was looking pretty foolish with this red line that he had drawn in Syria. About chemical weapons. Had it not been for the Russians convincing Syria to give up their chemical weapons, the president would have been pretty red-faced because of that red line. But Russia helped. He pulled the president's, testicles out of the sand, so to speak. And yet he gets no gratitude for that. It's pretty, it's pretty incredible, really, when you look at it in a full context. All right, Uganda. Uganda's already feeling the heat for passing very strict anti-gay legislation, which they did last week, if you remember. But they did it, and now a loan from the World Bank has been suspended. Many Western nations have been strong in denouncing this anti-gay legislation in Uganda. The legislation criminalizes positive talk of homosexuality and failing to report gay people to authorities. Those are the new wrinkles in this law. Homosexuality is already illegal in Uganda, but this ups the ante a bit. Also, lesbians have been added to the list. They were omitted at one point. A World Bank official said that they wanted to guarantee that the projects that the loan was destined to support were not going to be adversely affected by this new law. The loan was intended to boost Uganda's health services, but Ugandan spokesman Ofwono Opondo said that the World Bank should not blackmail its members. Quote, should not blackmail its members, unquote. The larger question is this idea of cultural imperialism. Once upon a time, progressives of every stripe strongly decried cultural imperialism as the West sought to transmit values of consumerism and competition and market capitalism into societies that were essentially communitarian and collectivist in their traditions. Many of the so-called third world countries, there was a lot of criticism of the West attempting to imbue its values into these folks. But now it seems that progressives are pushing cultural imperialism with this demand that Ugandans accept flexibility of sex and gender roles. What do you think? Give us a call, 773-591-1690, and let's talk. Okay, our first caller tonight is none other than Brother Larry. Hey, Larry, how you doing, man?
Fine.
Brother Larry. Brother Larry? Man. Larry, are you there?
Hello?
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
How's it going, man?
It's going all right. How you doing?
Man, it's all good. You know why it's all good?
Why is it all good, Larry?
Because, well, I'll tell you that in a minute. But first of all, I'd like you to know, I got a crayon, a bright red crayon to send Brother Obama so he can draw his bright red line. Because I'm sure the one he's presently using is probably worn down to the nub.
Did he draw another line on Ukraine?
Yeah, he drew another line on Ukraine. You know, Putin's probably quaking in his boots, thinking about the logistics of United States military intervention thousands of miles away from the United States when he's about to cut it to the bone. Yeah, I'm sure he's quaking in his boots. Yeah, no doubt he is. But it's all good. You know why it's all good, Salim?
Why is that, Larry?
Let me tell you why it's good. Because, you know, I've been pretty silent about, you know, Obama's identity fraud and the birth certificate. But you think it's quiet, it ain't quiet. It's getting bigger.
You haven't been silent, Larry. Every time you call, that's what you talk about.
No. I'm talking about me. I don't call every time.
Okay.
Time.
Okay. Right.
But
when you do call, when you do call, that's usually the object.
Well, remember, I have made a commitment. You know, I'm a man of integrity and a man of honor.
Yes,
you know
sir.
that.
Yes, sir.
You know, even when it costs me money,
yes,
I
sir.
insist upon keeping my commitments and my word. And I'm keeping my word. If nothing is revealed of earth-shattering significance by the end of March, I shall not mention it on your program again until the news comes out. That is my word of honor to you.
Okay,
if nothing comes of significance by the end of March, okay. And by the way, more and more, we've now got multiple major news outlets who are on board with this. Now, they don't want to come, they don't want to be first to stick their heads out. Do you know what the military term grazing fire means?
Grazing fire?
Grazing fire. It's a specific military term. What it means is when the maximum ordinance of a cone of fire, and the maximum ordinance is the highest point trajectory of a round reaches, when it doesn't get above knee height, between knee height and waist high. That's considered grazing fire.
Okay.
Like, particularly like with a machine gun. And see, like this whole issue with Barack Obama's identity fraud and all that stuff, that's like grazing fire. Don't nobody want to stick their head out to transfers and get it shot off. So, see, they're going to wait for Sheriff Pyle to come out with his information, and then all these major news outlets are coming on board. And believe me, you will recognize their names. They are major, big-time players in the mainstream media. They finally decided to cover this issue. And what is coming out will be simply earth-shattering. Now, when it does, Salim, let me tell you something. I'm either going to shut up about this until it's actually released. I will never say another word on your show again. Or I'm going to come around with enormous plates of roasted, buttered, and grilled crow. And I am going to come around with some of the most delicious Tabasco sauce and lemon juice. So it'll go down real easy for you and Steve and all the others out there. Especially Steve, because he suspended all the normal intellectual rigor that he reserves for, like, Afrocentric scholarship, which I greatly admired him for his principled stand and all that. I've greatly admired him for it. But when it comes to this issue, I mean, he just throws everything out the window. It doesn't matter. See, because after all, Hillary Clinton didn't say anything about it, or Bill Clinton said, the Republican National Committee, I guess that settles it, you know. But that's okay. Because like I said, man, I'm going to bring them plates around, and y'all going to learn to love it, too. It's going to go down so good.
Well, you see, man, I'm not trying to write anything bad about your menu of crow. I'm waiting to see if it's appropriate. If it's appropriate.
I mean, you should see this stuff. This stuff is just it's more and more all the time. More and more evidence is mounting. You know, and that's why they're having such trouble deciding how to release it in time, because they know they don't want to cover this. They really don't. They are scared to death of this thing. Like it's like we're in Victorian England and we talk about women's ankles or something. I swear to God. I mean, it's like that is worse than that by far. But they're trying to figure out how it is.
So tell me, Larry, what do you think about Ukraine, man?
Oh man, look, we got a nation that's been riven by ethnic divisions for centuries, actually.
Yes, yeah.
You got an eastern part of it that's more
Slavic.
Yeah, Eastern that speaks Russian. They consider consider themselves to the maximum extent Russian. Once upon a time, in the not so distant past, they were actually part of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics headed from Moscow.
Yes.
And you got the rest of it, which has always been intensely nationalistic. And in fact, the pogroms visited upon them by Stalinist Russia were brutal to the extent you cannot believe, particularly during World War II and in the wake of World War II. And these memories are all fresh. And now the Soviet Union is broken up. You've got all these ethnic rivals, which always happens in the wake of these communist countries breaking up, like Yugoslavia, and also you got these ethnic rivals that are coming to the surface. It's difficult to sort it all out. And you were speaking of the disparate elements within the Western Ukrainian nationalist people's mind. And yes, they are. They're disparate. You've got ultra-fascistic types who just can't stand Jews. Who probably would like to see pogroms. They'd like to see death camps come back.
They were putting swastikas on some of the Jewish embassies in Kiev.
Yeah, no doubt. So it's
Israeli
a mess.
embassies.
We don't need to be in there. Let's face it. It's if that ain't Russia's backyard. Like, we consider Ukraine, Grenada, and like we consider Guatemala and all our backyard. That's even closer with them.
That's right.
It's their backyard. They're going to have to sort it out, or they and the European Union. We from a military standpoint, there's almost nothing we can do. Almost nothing. What are they going to do? What are they going to send? They're going to send a brigade of the 101st Airborne Division get annihilated?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Send some aircraft over to get shot? Remember, the Russians provide the air defense networks for all these folks.
That's right.
They know how to run it better than anybody else. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Now, this is all hollow. This is even more hollow than the sort of posturing the Western powers put up in the wake of of Hitler taking over the rump of Czechoslovakia after the Munich Agreement. Well, we're going to guarantee Poland. Oh, yeah, right. You really did a good job on that one. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We have to, they can either threaten economic sanctions, whatever they can do, but look, ain't nothing going to happen there other than hollow threats or possibly some sort of brilliant diplomatic initiative of which this administration is utterly incapable of.
Unless it's helped by Putin.
Yeah, well, Putin could do it, yeah. He's a pretty slick old devil. I got to give him that much.
Okay, Larry, appreciate it, man. We'll be waiting till the end of March, bro.
It's coming, brother. And one more thing, man. Look,
yes, sir.
I've been trying to pull your coat, man. I've been trying to fill you in to the extent I can. You just won't let me. You won't let me help you. But look, all you got to do is contact the Sheriff Joe Pyle, Maricopa County, Arizona. Explain to him you're a forthright and diligent member of the media, and you like to have them come on your show to explain the issue with the budget. And they'll be happy to send a representative from the cold case posse, Lieutenant Mike Zullo's investigative unit, to explain what they've revealed publicly so far. And it's a veritable avalanche of information and evidence.
We shall see, Larry. We shall see.
Avalanche. Anytime you want. You don't have to go through me. I don't have to be the middleman. Just contact me yourself.
All right, man. Thank you, Larry.
All right.
I'll wait till March to see what's happening. Let's go to Mark. Hey, Mark, how you doing, my brother?
Man, Larry's consistent, ain't he?
He is indeed. What you got in there? Morse code, brother? You trying to deliver some messages? Sound like
what you mean Morse code?
I heard some beeps and some beeps back there, brother. Dots and dashes.
I don't know. I ain't heard nothing. You well, if it keeps going, let me know. You can decode.
It's going now, but soon when I first put you through, I heard a lot of beeps and dashes.
It's kind of weird. Maybe we being tapped, man, by the NSA.
No doubt, right? I can understand why they be on your case, brother. You always up to something.
Listen to you. Well, I ain't like I used to be. Maybe 20 years ago, but
you calmed down.
I lost the. Yeah. Well, hey, seriously, Mr. MuWakkil, do you think my brother's keeper, the President's Initiative, how effective do you think it will be?
I don't. It may be superficially effective because of all the attention and the presidential celebrity devoted to it, but I don't think it has legs, man, or durability. I think it's kind of one of those trendy flash in the pan kind of things. Why not? Why not Black Star Project, man? That's proved itself, right?
Well, let me tell you something. One, if the president ran for president tomorrow, right, I would vote for him again. I don't have no problem with that. But back in the day, we did some TV shows where we, as you would say, contextualized the president, not criticize him, but put him in context.
Yes.
And remember, I mean, I like the guy, but he's not one of us, in a sense that he's not a descendant of the slaves, and he wasn't raised in Chicago. Now, he knows Chicago, but he wasn't raised here. And, so he's played the game very well. That's why he's president. That's why he's elected twice. Because he played the game. Now, a person like me ain't played the game, so I've been marginalized for over 30 years. You know what I'm saying?
But
so, he's played the game. And he played the game well, so.
But Mark, he's stepping out. I mean, this is kind of interpreted as him stepping out during his lame duck period when he has no elections to lose, and so he's taking a chance on reaching out to black boys. That alone is considered pretty risky, and we see how he thought it was risky because he overlaid it with all of this conservative lecturing to young brothers to make sure.
And that's probably why he can't go too close to an organization like Black Star. I mean, let's face it, it's like the public schools. The public schools is about what? Contracts and jobs. Educating black children way down on the list. We got to understand that. And when you try to help black kids on the other level, you have a lot of white philanthropy, if I say that word right. So the white folks, not to be, I'm not.
And I think that's what
racist,
that's what this is based on. That's what this is based on.
Right, I'm saying, so they got to get paid. So they'll help a few black children, and they all get paid. I don't want to sound mean like a racist, but it's about people getting paid.
So you think?
So
you think even when the president is trying to be relevant, that he's still doing political theater?
Well, he got there playing the game, and like Bill Clinton is worth probably $100 million or something. He's worth a lot of money now, and the president's gonna make. He never really made no money. He ain't really making no money in a large scale right now. He gonna make his money when? After he's president. So he knows what he's doing. He got to look after himself as he's president. He's going to be a multi-millionaire when he leaves the White House. I mean, he's one now, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, he'll be getting $50,000 a speech.
You
and all
sound
that kind
cynical, brother. You sound very cynical.
Well, everything's real, man. You know that. It's all real. So I close the conversation up. Since you mentioned that, as I get off the phone, I'm going to go to the computer, and I always post on Facebook the president, the White House, and Obama, the website where you can, send the message to the president. He has these people talking about his relationship with the African American community. A lot of us complain about Rahm Emanuel, complain about the president, but all we do is call VON or go on Facebook and Twitter and complain. That's it. If the President Obama, I'll send my little letter to the White House in a few minutes. If the White House got 5,000, 50,000 letters or emails saying, "Hey, Jackson, stop. When you going to send something here?"
Good point,
he
brother.
may hear our cries. Michelle may say, "Hey, come on, Brock, you got to throw those Negroes a bone."
Good point. I hope the people who are listening to us tonight understand that.
Well, I'll post the link on your Facebook page, but go to the White House, .com, whatever, and tell the president, hey, what about Black Star? What about us in the hood, in the streets? I know the white folks gonna get paid. There's a couple of black organizations, playing the game. But what about real people like Philip Jackson and the Black Star Project? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, my brother Mark Sims. All right, let's go to George. Hey, George, how you doing, brother?
Hey, how you doing, Salim?
I'm well, man. Well.
Yeah, man. You guys were right on target with that issue that the president talked about, my brother's keeper. And I kind of agree with the previous caller, Mark. But, but my thing of it is, man, it's his advisors. And I can see, it's like I said one time, I know how they think. And they seem like they're so afraid of what Fox News or the conservatives are going to say. Even though this is his second term, and he waited then to put this out there, it's just that type of thing that sits
I agree. I hear you, man. It does seem like that they're a little bit too solicitous to the right wing. A little bit too concerned with what they think their impression will be, and trying to ease it.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, it's just. It seems like something that you just can't fully trust. And, you think about $200 million. That's small potatoes, man. You're talking about 5 years.
Yes, sir, it is small potatoes.
You need to start with jobs. And these guys don't need any lectures. If anything, he should get on there and lecture this You know, I get sick every time I hear somebody mention Bill Clinton's name. Man, this guy did so much to hurt the people. It's unthinkable, man. Actually, the only reason why he got a second term, he argued the Republican agenda. He did more. They didn't need to do anything with what Clinton did, you know, with the crime bill and prison industrial complex, you know, and he stopped the educational access. Man, it's crazy.
Yes, sir. But you know, Clinton, I agree. I totally agree with that. But Clinton made the Democrats relevant again, man. He by accepting neoliberal doctrine, you know, ideology, by going to Wall Street, by using the same kind of finances, you know, financial supporters as the Republicans use. In fact, one of the things about Bill Clinton was that he wrenched Wall Street away from the Republicans in a way that was pretty slick. A lot of people say that was a slick move for him.
Oh, of course.
And he made the Democrats relevant. But, of course, making them relevant also made them essentially carbon copies of the
Exactly. And they still hated him for it, you know?
That's right.
And then the thing that, you know, for profit prisons and all of that, man.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, I think about, and then this lousy judge up there in Pennsylvania, man, that guy should be strung up right away for
selling kids for money.
Yeah, man, it's way out. But, you know, like you say, this should be Phil Jackson. And I even think about this guy, what's his name, Geoffrey Canada out of New York?
Oh, Geoffrey Canada, yeah, he's stepping down from the Harlem Children's Zone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's stepping down after so many years. He's retiring, but he's retiring, you know, honorable discharge, so to speak, you know.
I see, yeah. And Phil Jackson, man, he definitely deserves that with my brother's keeper. You know, he should be there.
Oh, man, he's proved himself, no doubt, beyond any doubt.
Exactly, man. And, you know, with getting to the NFL, you know, I heard Deion Sanders say something that was really interesting the other night.
What did he say?
He said that, you know, he says, man, I think Arsenio Hall posed a question to him about the you know, the guy coming to the NFL. Mm-hmm. He said, listen, man, he says, I played on 5 different teams. And he said that was somebody gay on each one of those teams. So he said, what does it really mean? You know, just the fact that this guy is being public.
That's interesting.
You know? Yeah, that's from Deion Sanders, and you know, here's a guy that was right there, actually on 2 sports,
he was
baseball and football for a while.
Yeah, and Deion Sanders was kind of fabulous himself, right? I mean, a lot of people might have said, "Hey, Deion, what's up?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base with you on some things.
All right, Brother George. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Appreciate it, brother. You, sir. All right. Let's see who's next here. Is this Jim? Jim. Hey, Jim.
How you doing?
I'm good. Jim.
Good. It's always nice to have our good friend Larry from the far south side on the same time I'm on.
Yeah. Right. Well, very far south side now because Larry's in Georgia now.
That's what Democrats did that. So you redistrict Chicago all the way to
Jim, there's something wrong with your phone, man. I'm getting some strange feedback.
Oh, well, I'm okay. I can hear you fine.
But I can't hear you fine.
Oh, well, anyways, you made a comment, your opening statement about the Washington Redskins.
Yes, sir.
And to try to imply that somehow racism.
Redskins is a slur.
Well, it's not a slur. Listen, the Redskins came because they would put blood on their face to make themselves look evil, and it wasn't a skin color thing.
No,
it was a thing to frighten their enemy.
No, sir. It was currency in Maine. They called it Redskins when they killed a native and took the scalp. They call them Redskins. That was currency.
Indians as well as
No. See, that's the historical era. Natives never did that to white people. White people skinned and scalped Indians.
Indians skinned each other too, my friend. But besides that, you know, remember when the Anaheim Ducks named themselves the Anaheim Ducks?
No, sir, I don't remember that.
Quack, quack. So does the name Ducks instill any kind of fear?
No, that's a pretty lame name, I must admit.
It's just lame. It's politically
I agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Lame stuff. And so, therefore, when you want to say the Redskins is discriminatory, it's not. It's just another PC outlet to try to make people not fear something. There should be a strong.
Jim, I don't know why you take so much time and invest so much of your energy in trying to act and trying to debunk people who are concerned about being dehumanized in my
very well.
Culture.
First of all, I think very
why are you so serious about that? Do you want people to be?
Because you know what, this is.
Do you want people to be disparaged in public? Do you want that?
I don't want people to be politically correct because I think it's bad for society.
Natives don't like being called a slur.
Listen, why did the Seminole Indians not like when the NCAA didn't want them to have their name? They said, "Hey, we want to be the Seminole Indians." So they said, "Get out of here! Quit interfering with our stuff."
All right, man. All right, Jim. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, bro. I don't know what
the Seminole
say,
Indians.
Man.
How about Chief Elinowick?
Yeah, how about that? I'm so glad that
no, that was stupid. First of all,
I'm so glad that Illinois finally woke up and became a member of the 21st century.
Listen, that's politically correct stuff, my friend.
That's antiquated, savage brutality where you massacre another people. That is so brutal and so primitive, man.
How about the
I'm surprised you can't see that, man. You're intelligent,
this is what you're
man.
Saying. Do you want a leader?
You should be able to see. No,
or do you want somebody with like?
I agree with the Ducks thing. You got my agreement on that one, my brother.
Well,
but
right.
The other stuff is man, I don't see.
It's all the same mindset.
No, it's not, Jim.
Sure it is.
if people feel that they're being disparaged,
but they're not being.
You can't tell people how to say ouch.
Indians even left in Illinois.
All right, man.
You know what they did? They found some distant third, fourth cousin in New Mexico or something, and he goes, "Oh, I'm offended." Nobody in Illinois was offended. First of all, the name Illinois comes from an Indian name. Indianapolis comes from Indian names.
I'm not even proud of that, man. That's just imperialism.
Well, it was done as it's a matter of respect.
Yeah, we took over their land and then we named it after them. Oh, big whoop.
How about the Blackhawks?
Thank you.
Is that discriminatory?
Thank you. I don't know if we can penetrate you, Jim. I really don't, man.
My friend, I'm trying to reach out.
I hold out hope because I hear intelligence occasionally in your comments. And
anytime you want to get together and have a beer, we'll fix the world problem.
All right, Jim. Thank you, my man, Jim. All right, let's go to Madeline. Hey, Madeline, how you doing?
Oh, I'm good, Salim. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I called because I did some research on the Becoming a Man organization. I wanted to find out, where their tentacles are, how long they've been around, who they're tied to, and all. And so what I found out, and it really did bother me relative to how President Obama went to that organization and skipped over Phil Jackson and the Black Star Project. And in fact, I had one time went to the Black Stars orientation because I wanted to help with the tutoring program on Saturdays, and now I do have some time, and I'm going to go back to that. But what I did here today also was even more troubling because, of course, he said he had to lay off some people, and which obviously says the guy needs money. The organization needs serious fundraising.
They do indeed, and this would have been a perfect time for the president to respond to that need.
Yeah, I just thought that was, I didn't like that. But, one of the other callers made it a point, and I said this about President Obama even when he was campaigning, that he does not have the black experience of being like your typical black man in the United States.
Yes. The way I put it, Madeline, is that he's not an African American in the traditional sense. When I use it different, and I use it as we are a unique people who had a unique socialization process. We are a unique ethnic group in the African diaspora, and the president is not of that group.
He is absolutely not. So when we look at how he moves and who he moves with, his alliances and all that, we have to keep all that contextual experience, and we have to take that in context because you are who you are by virtue of your experiences, and for him, I mean, to have come to Chicago, I have some friends who live on the South Side or in the South Shore area, and they said he came to the South Shore area, and they adopted him, and he called one of the elderly ladies, Mama so and so and so and so. So he aligned himself with some people in order to gain the black experience. But that's
I don't begrudge him that. And in fact, I kind of admire that. He designed an identity out of for himself. And I appreciate that. I mean, he could have went a lot of ways, but he wanted to be identified as an African American. I appreciate that. But
absolutely.
And I don't. And again, I don't think it's absolutely necessary for someone to share our cultural heritage in order to do good things for us. But I think it is important that we keep in mind that he is not an African American in that sense. He doesn't have a heritage of enslavement in his background.
Exactly. And then also, how he grew up, who he grew up with, who is, the people who he was closest to, all those factors weigh in terms of his behavior. But here's the thing, what I looked at in terms of my brother's keeper, that organization actually is connected to another organization called Youth Guidance, which has been around for 87 years. Which started off actually serving girls through an organization called the Church Mission of Help.
Where are they based, Madeline?
When I tried to find, I'm going to dig a little further to see where the Church Mission of Help actually resides. But I can tell you this: they have been in the Chicago area. That much I was able to discern. And when we talk about the money, see, when we look at all these nonprofit organizations, Salim, I always look at where the tentacles that are attached to a nonprofit. Where is the money? We're talking about an organization. That organization has generational money. That's why they've been around so long. We're talking about money from Winnetka. We're talking about Barrington. Okay? And therein lies the connection to Rahm Emanuel. Okay? Those are all of the connections. And like I said, the organization started out, in fact, Youth Guidance is still around. And it's connected to BAM. And BAM was brought along, of course, as a result. And I heard Dorothy Tillman this morning say that, and that's what really prompted me to do the secondary research to see exactly what this organization is all about and what spawned this. And lo and behold, the wonderful university, I'm using that with quotes around it.
Ironically.
University of Chicago did a study. The crime lab there at the University of Chicago did a study, a sociological study about the behavior of black young men. And found out, some information about what needs to happen in order for their behavior to become culturally correct. And so now they've got a program, this BAM program, deals with things like that we would expect children to learn, normally to learn. But unfortunately, a lot of those young men, as we know, young black men, a lot of times they're not socialized properly because of the disconnect with their families. And so one of the things, though, that really bothers me about them, when I look at the curriculums and the programs that have been brought along to deal with our problem, and when I say our, because I am black, of course, what bothers me a lot of times about this, Salim, is when we talk about why these boys get to be this way in the first place. A lot of times when I talk about the violence, what's driving that? And I have been saying for quite some time, and I've done some research on it. The thing is the lack of education relative to developing critical thinking skills. And it's not even embedded when you look at the program that is offered. I did hear you say that. What can we expect out of this BAM program? And it's more substance and it's more superficial than it is, than it does have real content, something that's going to be really meaningful, something that's going to, the kind of program that really would enable these boys to learn how to think critically and to really connect dots and deal with their lives in such a way so that academically as well as socially, they would become the best of what they could be. And I find that very troubling. And it bothers me when I see programs that really are putting Band-Aids on a systemic problem.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly. And you know, that's what a lot of the critics of the program are really focusing on, that it does nothing really to deal with the systemic roots of this issue. Nothing at all.
And I'll tell you this,
and especially since the president has an opportunity to do that, right?
Absolutely.
As the president.
Absolutely. And see, when I heard Phil Jackson talking earlier today on the program, he was on Leon Finney's program. Phil Jackson he's got it right. He understands that these boys are not being educated. And it goes back, unfortunately, it is a problem a lot of times with their upbringing. They're not coming from families where education is appreciated. And so they are not getting all those preparatory skills to enable them to really go into school ready to learn, if you will. And then they go into school, and, you know, I heard somebody say this, too, and it really bothers me. I've heard, I even heard Karen Lewis make a comment about it. There's a tendency to attach a person's socioeconomic level to their ability to learn. And I've seen it happen too many times. And, in fact, I've started now finally working on a book, and I'll talk about that another time. But that is a big problem, because what it leads to is tracking. It leads to tracking of children.
But Madeline, isn't there? I hear that, and I agree. I understand that is a problem, a potential problem of this whole tracking issue. But isn't it important, as many people brought up, and you mentioned Phil and him being on Leon Finney's show today. He was with a brother, I think, from the teachers union, who was making the point that poverty is an underlying issue that it's kind of the elephant in the room kind of thing, that poverty undermines many attempts to make some sort of educational improvements, because it's always undermined by this lack of sustenance. And don't you think it's important to keep that in mind, or that educators or that city leaders, the leaders of the country, should understand that poverty is an important component of this and needs to be addressed?
I'm going to tell you this, and in fact, this book that I'm working on is going to address this issue. Yeah, are you familiar with a movie called Stand and Deliver?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And I thought I'd bring that up because Jaime Escalante, I thought, and I'm sure there have been some blacks who have done the same thing, but we don't. For some reason, they didn't get put in a movie like Escalante did.
Well, you know, that Morgan Freeman flick in which he was the brother in Newark, in Jersey. I forgot what city, but yeah.
Yeah, right. It was in New Jersey, and and in fact, he got thrown out of office by some blacks.
That's right.
And that's also another one of our problems. But anyway. What my point is, I thought Escalante's story was the best representation, one of the best representations of the effect that a teacher can have on children who, although coming from a poor family, if the teacher has high expectations for children, children, and this has all been, documented, that children will rise to those expectations.
Yes, ma'am.
And I can tell you, listen, I used to, back in the early 90s, I subbed in the Chicago schools for a couple of years.
Okay.
And my experience, and I tell people this, my experience was, with almost no exception, superb, meaning that most times with the schools that I went to, and most times I dealt with high school reading subjects, English and history and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would take materials, and sometimes even with first year algebra, I would take materials. I would find out what the kids were. Mm-hmm. Say what?
So we got to move fast, so we running to the top of the hour.
Yes, I understand. To kind of wrap this up, I would take materials with me, find out where the kids were, and take them to the next level. Bottom line being to challenge them.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
what I discovered invariably was that kids appreciate being challenged.
Yes, ma'am.
And it has nothing to do with the socioeconomic level. These children, our kids can learn.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Anyway,
thank you. Appreciate it, Marilyn. Nothing at all to do. What do you guys think about that? We'll be right back. 809, Salim MuWakkil here on the Talk of Chicago. Back with you. And right back to the phones we go. Hey, Tommy, how you doing?
Hey, Salim, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
The astonishing thing for me is always when I start hearing people voice their concerns on things such as what's going on over there with Black Star and the total disenfranchising that we've been receiving from day one. You do remember, Salim, when I called you on this phone and I said, hey, Salim, when then a president was running for this office, and he was over there at Bishop Brazier's, the late Bishop Brazier's church, mm-hmm. and he came in there and he told those people about pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. You know, he did say this in Chicago,
the Father's Day speech, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you do remember I told you that the people started cheering and acting like it was a basketball game. And I got up and I walked down the middle of the center aisle and I called you on the phone and I told you, I said, Salim, we are in trouble. And the trouble that we're in, Salim, is that as many times as I've called, I continue to say that people play you the way you play yourself. And ever since the white flight began to take place on the south and west side, and the industrial parks were invented, and the transportation systems as we knew it began to be lessened, and the clearing of the south and west side in terms of employment opportunities, and the just absolute outrageous non-policing and the communities being turned into outlands and things. And I continue and have said over and over and over, okay, so now they didn't disfeel. What are we going to do about it? And there's only one damn thing you can do about it, and excuse my language, which is to go downtown and begin a serious protest all over this country, and especially in the city. I mean, I don't know how much more, it takes for a person before they begin to understand skip you. It's almost equivalent to somebody just walking up to you and taking your paycheck after you worked for 40 hours. And I'm just going to close with this because I don't want to sound like I'm ranting and raving and stuff. But Salim, it's just an absolute epitome of stupidity. So I wrote a book, Salim, and I hope that you will help me to distribute it.
You wrote a book, Tommy?
Yes, I did.
All right.
And I wrote a book, and it's simply called "How Dumb Can You Be?" Bless you, Salim. Love you, man.
Yeah, I was Tommy Straight Man on that one. Let's go to Wes. Hey, my brother Wes in Atlanta.
Yes, sir. Walaikum
salam, brother. How are you?
Hey, I'm blessed, man. I'm watching y'all up there. The Black Hawks play up there in Soldier Field, man.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's perfect. It's perfect hockey weather if you're gonna play outside.
Yes, sir. Hey, Salim, look here, man. I got a couple of points, man. But there's two callers that really got under my skin tonight. One is they got Larry. He's the epitome of two words: meritorious manumission. Okay, and he got his accolade from Jungle Jim. Okay,
wow.
And that guy got a dentist office up there. If any black person support his dentist office, man, they ought to be shame on themselves. But let me give a little history lesson to Jungle Jim. Salim, you ever heard of a group called Skull and Bones?
Yes, sir.
You know what they famous for?
You mean the fraternity out of Yale?
Yeah.
That Bush was a member of?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they're famous. They're famous for having prominent people as members of their fraternity.
Well, let me break it on down, Salim. Why they call themselves Skull and Bones?
Yes, sir.
Because they dug up the body of Chief Geronimo, okay? And they got his skull and his bones, man. That's their grandpa. They dug up Chief Geronimo of the Apache tribe, I think, and got his skull and his bones. And therefore, every doggone military weapon, i.e. them bombs, they got some Geronimo bombs and stuff, and Tomahawk missiles. And so they very derogatory toward the Indian tribe, man. I don't know if you heard of them.
I have heard of them, yeah.
Okay, and I found that out a couple of years ago. And it's very offensive, man, to call that team the Redskins, man.
Yes, sir, I agree, brother.
For that guy, Jungle Jim, to tell somebody...
Just call him Jim.
For that guy, Jim, for him to define that Indian tribe that's not being derogatory toward them when these Europeans came over here and took their land and scapped them Indians, man.
Yes, sir.
Okay, scapped our people, man.
That's right. Okay? That's what they did.
So, I mean, that's atrocious. But another point I want to make with you, you said Russia don't have no bases nowhere, right?
Right.
Well, I think they got one in Cuba. Don't you think they run in Cuba?
No, they don't have it any longer. They used to have one in Cuba. But Cuba is still friendly to their military installations, but they don't have an official base there like they used to. And on a positive note, I'd like to get in contact with Madeline because I know she do something with solar panels and wiring houses. Solar. Yes, sir, she does.
And so I want to get in touch with her because that's the field I want to get into, trying to possibly put some brothers to work. Okay. That's a lucrative, promising field, no doubt. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. That way I can put some brothers to work and we can do our own thing, man. And I like to give out my email address or my phone number or something to Madeline, maybe if she's listening. Okay, do both of them, man. My email address is wbwb52 at live.com, and my phone number is 404-604-6770, because it's time for us to start doing stuff for ourselves. Let me ask you another question. You familiar with Reverend Sampson that live up there? He got a Chicago number, right?
Albert Sampson, yes, sir. I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, he got a group called George Washington Carver Farms, right?
Yes, sir.
And he's trying to put a distribution network together.
He is indeed.
Where we can get all these black businesses together to get some warehouses.
Black farmers.
Yeah, with black farmers, fishermen.
Yes, sir.
Even the black people that have the meats, heavier meats, and black truckers. And you want to also start a black contractors association. And so it's called George Washington Carver Farms, man. And Miss Madeline, I want to get in contact with her, please, so we can get our business and start doing for ourselves, where I can donate to the Black Star, man.
Yes, sir.
I want to roll with them people, man. They're my folk.
They're good people to roll with, brother. Thank you, Wes.
That's awesome.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam. Take care of yourself, brother. Brother Wes. All right, let's go to Steve. Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing this evening, Salim?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. All right. I was watching, when Bill O'Reilly was talking about New Jared about, about the president's initiative on my brother's keeper. Yes. And, he said about, how they should have Kanye West and Jay-Z and Beyonce, and basically, in other words, saying that they sending the wrong message to black youth. Now, I'm no fan of neither one of those entertainers or these ball players for a whole other reason, but the point I'm making is the people that's supposed to be representing us or progressives or liberals, why they don't never say, okay, well, why don't you have people from Wall Street or have guys in here with suits and saying, hey, won't you tell them about how they setting the culture to saying the people that's going to be working on Wall Street on how they stealing money and how the best way to get that cash in the short-term game by destroying and raiding pensions. You ain't saying, the people that's supposed to represent us ain't putting it on the spot to say, hey, you don't have people from Wall Street on here, chastising them and saying, hey, y'all setting the wrong culture, for future people that's going to work on Wall Street on how to make money the right way. But they sit up here and let Bill O'Reilly and these conservative people from Fox denigrate, you might as well say minorities or liberals, whichever one you want to call it, and don't say nothing back. And I'm just tired of these cowards, representing us. You know what I'm saying? Because it's crazy.
Yeah, it seems like Valerie Jarrett could have reframed some of the stuff that O'Reilly was pumping her with. He had a whole agenda that he was hitting, and she kind of accepted it. He was saying that the president should be going after the rappers and rather than what he's doing, and that Michelle Obama should be talking to Beyonce rather than what she's doing. As if as if pop culture has the answer for our problems, as if it's not just a response. And he incidentally, man, I saw Kanye, and it's really one of the first times I saw him interviewed in a way that was coherent. He had some coherent ideas actually come out. He was on this thing, The Breakfast Club. Are you hip to that? Mm-hmm. It's a New York show, right? This guy Charlemagne the God is on there, and he's very critical of Kanye and has been for a long time. And so they were face to face, and he was hitting Kanye with some real hard questions, about the Confederate flag, and he called him Kanye Kardashian, and all kind of. He was hitting him, and Kanye was taking it, but he made his point that he's trying to expand. He doesn't want to be limited by the expectations of folks who are comfortable with him doing what he does. He says that when he was a producer, folks didn't think he could rap. They told him not even try. Don't even try, because you don't have skills. Stay, be happy with being a producer. He said, nope, I'm not going to be happy. And he went on and rapping, the rest is history. And now people are telling him to stay in music. That's where they want him, that's where they like him, and that's where we are comfortable looking at him. And he said, no, I'm not going to let your expectations limit my expansion. And it really was the first time I really understood a little bit about where Kanye was coming from. But that's kind of an aside. You were saying about O'Reilly.
Right. And, I'm just, just like you said to the caller earlier about how it's like everybody got to get Fox News approval. Everybody's scared of what Fox News gonna say, and it's just to me it's just saying that, hey, in other words, you bow down because really, in reality, you really have the same thinking that we have. You just happen to be on the other side, because there's no way that Fox News gets away with what they say. And every time I see so-called progressive or liberal on their show attack them like that, and they don't say nothing in response to say, like you just talked about with the opportunity, mm-hmm. O'Reilly trying to say, hey, it's because of Jay-Z them that they, that black boys are like this or black teenagers think this way. Then nobody wants to say nothing about the level of opportunity, the resources. Nobody's bringing none of that up. They just let them say what they want to say. That mm-hmm. makes me feel that y'all really think the same way too. Mm. Y'all just happen to just be on the other side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Y'all don't defend. Y'all don't defend none whatsoever,
Yeah, I know what you're saying, brother. I absolutely know exactly what you're saying. And it is a little bit frustrating because you see that that they get manipulated by these right-wing pundits into simply playing into to their scheme of using them to emphasize their points. And if they would reframe it a bit, just a little bit, just say something like, Jay-Z grew up in poverty, man. He grew up. People didn't expect him to make it. Just something to throw off O'Reilly's assurance. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, my brother, and I share your frustration.
All right.
Okay, Steve. Take care, bro. Yeah. I don't know if you saw that O'Reilly was talking to Valerie Jarrett, and he just laid into her. Again, he's been talking about how magisterial his interview with the president was on Super Bowl Sunday, which is again that was another flat performance by O'Reilly, because he simply, it wasn't an interview, and it never is really on Fox. They have an agenda. They try to manipulate people into agreeing with them or confirming their agenda, and that's really all they're about. They're not trying to get answers. They already know the answers. They have that vice of certainty. They already know the answers. They have no questions about the answers. They just want you to bear witness to their position. And when you go on their shows, that's essentially what you wind up doing, because they control the context and all of that. But I guess, in order to play as if you are impartial and trying to reach out and bipartisan and all of that, you have to play the game of appearing to adhere to Fox's stuff, and that's what a lot of these guys are doing, and that certainly is what Valerie Jarrett was doing. But again, I kind of agree with Steve. I think that essentially a lot of these people share the same assumptions. They just couch it in different from different perspectives. They launch it from different angles, but it's basically the same perspective that they share. All right, brother Shelby. Hey, man, how are you, sir?
What's happening, brother Salim?
I'm all right, Shelby. How you doing?
Oh, you always. Oh, I'm doing great, man. You always doing good. Thanks a lot for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I know I get bread. Hey, brother Salim, I'm gonna try to use a big word to try to impress you. I know sometimes I get a little rambunctious, man. So hope you excuse me. So I'm gonna get your excuse a little bit before I start. Hey, brother Salim, that
preemptive
interview
excuse.
Yeah, thank you, man. That interview that you saw with Kanye West.
Yes.
Did he ask Kanye West about
the Confederate flag? Huh?
No. Hey, let's put that aside.
Okay.
The lyrics that Kanye West said about selling his soul to the devil.
No,
Kanye West, in one of his lyrics,
that didn't come up.
He sold his soul to the devil. All right, because if I
what lyric was that? Do you remember the song?
I don't know what lyrics it, but look it up, Google it. You can see one of his songs. He say he sold his soul to the devil.
Okay.
Now one of the questions I say, Mr. Kanye, where's that devil with the red tail? Let me go and grab that devil that you talking about over there. You see. He said that in one of his lyrics, and someone can call up after me and give the song, and people can look it up. But that's one of the questions that I was asking. He said he sold his soul to the devil, and all them little,
Okay, go ahead.
And all them little hand signs that he's showing, and all. I said, man, that looks like some nasty stuff to me, brother Salim. Now Madeline mentioned some good points.
Mm-hmm.
That if you She mentioned having high expectations.
That's right.
But when I think of helping students, the best analogy that I can come up with is like planting a seed and expecting it to grow. So
yes.
you see, if you go down, you need the right atmosphere. You need some sunlight. You can't have no Bud Light, brother Salim. You need some sunlight.
That's right.
You need some water. You need there's a number of things that you need in order to groom someone if you expect them to be, and a large percentage of our black boys and black women too, Brother Salim, are not getting that nurturing from a very young age.
That's right. Absolutely right, man.
Your zip code dictates whether you're going to succeed or not than any other measure, Brother Salim. Your zip code. Simply your zip code. Where you live, do you have access to fresh fruits and vegetables? Do you have access to the library? You know, do you have access to parks and recreation?
Sir. How close are you to coal burning plants and other kinds of polluting?
So, Brother Salim, we can almost to a great degree dictate what the outcomes are going to be, because when we see that they're putting all of this money in the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, you can fill in the blank with the drug industrial complex. You can see how we're groomed for failure.
Yes, sir. No doubt.
That's how I look at it, brother. I got to tell you honestly, Brother Salim, I was very hyped as a young child and everything like that, but I had people that really punished me and whipped me and corrected me and made sure that I got a little bit of work in. I did my homework, stuff like that. I just think that a lot of our people may not be getting that. That's how I look at it, Brother Salim. Now, Brother Dwight had told you, I remember Dr. Khalid used to try to come up with, he used to address the audience as Hotep, Tabarigani, Assalamu Alaikum, Shalom, all of that. Now, Brother Salim, I always get confused with Dr. Khalid because he should have stick with Assalamu Alaikum and went down that track because that's where he is.
Well, but he was trying to appeal to a lot of folks. And then in his last years, he was, really into the Black Power thing with the,
And I just have the utmost respect for the brother. You ever heard his lecture? The white woman is I'm not going to finish the last one.
I have heard that. Yes, sir.
Hey, that's pretty good, man.
He was a very an amazing orator, man, who had a lot of talents.
Now, Brother Salim, when I look at those little people over there in what was that? Where's that little place over there that Russia took over and all of that? Ukraine. Hey, Brother Salim, how you make it seem kind of a little. I mean, I like your analysis, Brother Salim, but I got to ask you a question: is that white on white crime?
You could actually you could call it that.
You see, they chastise black people for having black on black crime.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, is that white on white crime that we're looking at?
Yeah, but it transcends crime because it's a national issue. Is
that white people fighting white people?
It's white people fighting. It is white on white violence, no doubt about it.
No problem. Because Brother Salim, I hear people act like black people are the only people that fight each other.
Very good point, brother. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make that point clear because that's white on white crime. I know it took a long time, Brother Salim, but thanks a lot for taking my call, man.
All right, Shelby. Thank you, brother. Right, appreciate it. Hotep. White on white violence. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Although there are some Ukrainians who might beg to differ. In fact, that's one of their issues. They don't consider Slavs or Russians as white as they are. There's race in this. There's race expressing itself all over the world in certain kind of ways and in subtle ways. And if you look, long and hard enough, you'll see it. One of the issues in the Ukraine are these ultra-nationalists, these folks who believe that they are Teutonic and they're not Slavs. And so they have an ethnic motive into what they're up to. And they're also very anti-Jewish. I would say anti-Semitic, but that's not really an accurate way of putting it. They're anti-Jewish. They put a swastika on some of the buildings in Kiev when they were demonstrating. And a lot of those ultra-nationalists in Ukraine are anti-Jewish. A lot of them associate communism with Jewishness. And so that's why they are also anti the East or anti-Russian, because they consider that in a kind of a rump communist state. So there's all kind of issues involved in this stuff in Ukraine, and we could, it's worth study because it is the human condition expressing itself. Let's go to Maceo. Hey, my brother, how are you, sir?
Hey, Salim, I am doing great. How are you?
Very good. I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
And good evening to the VON family, and let me say hello to the maestro, Albert Page, and just a shout out to one of your callers, one of your listeners, avid listeners, but she rarely calls. That's Maria. Hey, Maria. So hello to her. Salim, this week, this Thursday, I was over at Wendell Phillips High School for their Black History program, and I just want to give kudos to those young people. They really gave they put on a tremendous program, Black History program.
Very good.
PowerPoints for young people. PowerPoint, and talking about Marcus Garvey, talking about the Black Panthers. I mean, and then, with the, spoken word and everything like that.
Yes.
Just a variety of expressions and telling our story, and they did, and they told it well. So I just want to give kudos to those young people at Wendell Phillips High School.
Wendell Phillips, all right. Holding it down. Very
Yes,
good.
indeed. Salim, I'm going to say a few sports names and tell me if they conjure up any fear into your heart, okay? If it's okay with you. Okay, the Red Sox, the Boston Red Sox, the Baltimore Orioles, the St. Louis, the Boston Celtics. Are you feeling afraid? Or you're feeling some type of shiver or something? Well, but the point is that the reason why, these are just simple birds, the cardinal, the oriole, and you got some socks in there, and you got a clover. But the reason why these teams were so great and so formidable and so awe by their opponents was because of their level of excellence. Is that not right?
That is right.
You take the.
It didn't have anything to do with their names, with their fearsome names, right?
Nothing whatsoever. The Boston Celtics.
I wish the Bears would act like bears.
And I have a story for one of the teams here before they became fierce. But the Boston Celtics 8 championships in a row with the great Bill Russell. But the reason, but for the longest, until the Bulls got Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen, they were the doormats of the league. And the Bull is a good representation for a mascot. But there was nothing fierce about that Bull. People just walked over them.
That's right.
So I'm just making the point that a mascot means nothing whatsoever if you do not.
Except I have to go with him on the Ducks, man. The Ducks just don't.
No, I don't
do it for me, man.
But if the Ducks,
Anaheim Ducks, no.
But if the Ducks had the level of play like these other teams.
They could change the image of even Ducks, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
The Affleck Duck is trying to do something.
But truly, people would, if they became as proficient at what they do, they would conjure up a lot of fear.
But I understand what Jim is talking about. That sports teams try to present a fearsome image, and that's part of the reason for their mascots and for their team names. But I think, like you point out, a lot of that image is cultural bound, and we could change it whenever we want, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be at the expense of degrading or denigrating somebody else.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And, I just want to say this week, the great Marian Anderson had a birthday, and if I may just say a few things about her, please.
Sure.
Born on February 27th, 1897 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She had her debut with the New York Philharmonic on August 26, 1925. She debuted at Carnegie Hall in 1928. But one of the biggest concerts, and she couldn't, after that, she really couldn't make it in this country, just like what's his name, Father Earl Father Hines, concert pianist, the great Thomas Wright Waller, classically trained, and even Coleman Hawkins, classically trained, but they could not get into those venues because they were denied. And so she had to go to Europe in order to really excel. But her biggest, one of her biggest concerts ever, of course, took place on the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday, 1939, after being denied by the Daughters of the American
Revolution.
Yes, 75,000 people. I imagine Constitution Hall maybe holds about 1,000 people. So anyway, justice was prevailed in that case, and then ultimately she was later on in her life, she was taken on by the Met, making her Metropolitan debut on January 7, 1955. So I just wanted, and I appreciate you letting me say that. And I meant to ask you this on Wednesday. Have you ever heard the term fancy girls?
Yes, I have heard that.
You know, I was during Black History Month. I was listening to looking at some videos from the History Channel, and one was depicting the Civil War and then slavery, and it started talking about fancy girls, and then ultimately it mentioned that fancy girls were mulatto enslaved Africans. And even in the movie 12 Years a Slave, you know, remember the little girl in there when the lady said that that was her master's child, and the guy, the slave dealer, he told this guy Ford that he couldn't just give her away because she could bring in a lot of money, and they were used essentially for mistresses and prostitution and stuff like that. But just saying that this institution was just a horrid.
It was absolutely horrid. And the more we find out about it, the more horrid it becomes. And the more we see how deeply embedded it is into American history and how crucial it is for the development of the American economy.
Yes, and that you just said a mouthful there. You know, in that capitalistic that economy. You said it right, the way it's supposed to be said. And then also Europe too, England.
Yeah,
the Industrial Revolution. So it's something that really it needs to be not only talked about, but it needs to be addressed in terms of that Marshall Plan and that reparation.
Brother. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Brother Maceo. Yes, sir. Yeah, indeed. You know, that's we're going to have to come down to that. We're going to have to, because the more scholarly research we do, the more we find how fundamental slavery is to this country, not just in its economic development, which it is that, but in its social and cultural development as well. Many of our institutions, many of our social attitudes were refracted or reacting to the institution of slavery. And they've been embedded into this culture. They've been embedded so deeply that they're invisible to many folks. They're invisible to many white Americans. They're not so invisible to us because we bump into them all the time. But even us have learned to accept white supremacy as conventional wisdom. And that's, part of our problem as well. Pam, good evening. How are you, my dear?
I'm well, Salim. How are you?
I'm doing well.
And hello to the WVON family.
Yeah.
Salim, I just really took note that Jim, you presented him with something that was factual when you talked about scalping with the Native Americans.
Yes.
And do you see how Jim didn't even acknowledge it?
I know.
Just glossed over it, didn't ask where did your reference come from, your resource. Just didn't even want to entertain the thought that you were presenting some information to him that he had been mistaken.
Absolutely right.
And so I'm saying too many white people do that, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And I think they need to correct themselves on that. So I hope Jim is still listening and that what you said prompted him to really go do some real research.
I would hope so.
And so, Salim, if another culture or people tell me that something is offensive to them, I'm going to take that at face value.
I will also. I mean, you can't tell other people how to say ouch.
Thank you. I'm not going to argue about it. If you let me know it's offensive, I can restrain myself and really try to change my way of thinking and look at it from that group's perspective. It was astounding to me. It shouldn't have been, but wow.
Yeah, I hear you. It was pretty graphically illustrated in that conversation.
Sure. And Salim, let me ask you about this statement, because this has happened to me several times. I've been at an event, and if it's regarding diversity, perhaps some a white person would stand up and say, well, we're all immigrants to this country. Now, I find that offensive. And because, as I understand my history, black people, we're not immigrants to this country.
That is correct.
And
for the most part, there are some who are, but that's a later development.
Sure, but it's always said and stated in the framework of why we're Americans. Sure, and we're all in this thing together.
Right.
And I believe when they do that, that really negates the true history of black people in this country. And so I've been to an event where Daley was, he said it, and I almost wanted to stand up and just simply say, you're a damn lie.
They would have looked at you like the skunk at the dinner party, right?
Exactly, Salim. And I did not want to embarrass the person who invited me to this particular event. But that's offensive to me.
Yes,
and that speaks to the fact that they don't want to even acknowledge
You know what,
truth.
Pam, I think some of them don't really know. I think some may, but I think that's one of the problems of America, of the way we educate our young people, and the way we educate Americans in general. Our cultural education, we don't acknowledge that difference enough. As Maceo pointed out, this whole slavery thing was a serious civilizational trauma that we have yet to begin to plumb the depths of how devastating that was.
Exactly.
And that's us. We don't even realize it. So, and American people, they have a layer of guilt over their recognition of this. So it's even more difficult for them to acknowledge it.
Sure. Because it was something that their ancestors did.
Absolutely.
The enslavement and the inhumane treatment. I mean, there are really no words to describe it.
None at all.
We make a feeble attempt at it.
Yes.
But there are really no words to describe it. And they really haven't come to terms with how to deal with it. And then to try to make things right. When you harm people, you try to make things right, Salim.
You have to. If you want that harm to heal, you have to.
And let me just move on to the president with the initiatives. I'm somewhat conflicted about that. On one hand, you want to tell our young boys that are in grammar school and in high school, do what's right, stay out of trouble, get an education. But on the other hand, you want to tell our HBCUs, well, something's wrong with the funding, so I'm going to change the way loans are approved, and therefore I'm going to impact the number of students that you're able to maintain in your universities. So I find that somewhat contradictory.
Given with one hand, taking away with the other, kind of.
Exactly. And education is important to you, but you nominate the most, unqualified person as Secretary of Education. And we know that because we experienced Arne Duncan firsthand.
We experienced them. That's right.
So I don't know what quite to believe on that issue. I'm always concerned about President Obama's experience as a black man, because it hasn't, I don't think, been the same as ours, or maybe I should say mine. I don't want to speak for anyone else. But I feel like, Salim, I'm still waiting for the first black president. I know he looks like me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this a little earlier, that he has a different cultural heritage than most African Americans. He doesn't have enslavement is not a part of his cultural heritage, as it is for most of us. And that was extremely important in fact, African Americans, the way I say it, as a specific ethnic group in the diaspora, we were created by slavery in many ways as African Americans. That hyphenated process was put in play by slavery. That's what hyphenated us. And so we have this imbalanced identity that goes back to the very foundation of this country. That's why it's so important for us to understand and acknowledge it and deal with it and heal the wounds of it, because it's so deeply ingrained in us as an identity.
And as we do that, though, certainly I don't want to make an excuse or give us an out as to why we shouldn't, elevate ourselves in the way that, our ancestors certainly did. And we, shouldn't appreciate education and what we have. But I think you always have to bring an understanding. And I'm not sure. It seems like I always feel as though President Obama is blaming black people for something. And, maybe that's my interpretation. When you talk about this organization becoming a man, well, I can appreciate that. But if I have a young son, I really want him to know what it's like to become a black man. Because for me, that is something quite different. And I don't know, if the president recognizes that or would even feel free to acknowledge that. But I think that is something different. I want a mentoring program that is strong in its cultural sense and talking about our culture. Yes. And as I've called on WVON and said before, Salim, I've been told you have to reach the standards. The standards were already set by our ancestors. We don't have to say let's be better than or as good as other ethnic groups. We have those standards set in our own. And I wish we would appreciate that. I wish the president would talk about that more. And I wish that would be acknowledged and rooted in some of these mentoring programs. So I just ask people to be very careful when you have your young person in a mentoring program. What are they really teaching? What values? Where are the values coming from? Because I think there should be a cultural base.
Yes, ma'am. But I think a lot of people say, "Hey, I don't, value. I just want a sense of hard work, a sense of academic dedication. Those kind of values are the ones that I'm concerned about.
And Selena, we've had that
cultural identity is not.
That.
But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
You're right. I mean, I agree. But that's what I'm saying. I think we downplay and diminish the value of cultural identity. And the need for us to cultivate that. That's what the 60s were all about, and the 70s. But we seem to have lost that impetus, and I don't know what our uniqueness is all about now. It's some kind of outlaw cultural stance, the hip hop cultural stance. I think that's how a lot of African Americans think of themselves as being unique. That kind of position, that kind of identity. And that's a riff on American identity. It's not anything that's deeply authentic. It's a riff, and that's why we need to be serious about cultural identity. I agree with that.
And let me ask this last question, and I know you have other callers. Salim, what do white people need to make them what they are? And I hope I'm phrasing that question correctly, because I'm simply saying it seems to me they needed a certain set of things to exist to build this country, to build their wealth, to build their legacies, whatever they may be, good or bad, and to make themselves whole. So if that's what they needed, is that in turn what we need?
I don't know exactly what you're driving at, Pam, with that.
I guess I'm saying, white people or this country, let me say, wants us to believe that they just worked hard and they built it and they had values and they, did all of this and all of these great things came about.
Yes.
when we know that that's not the truth, that they had people to build this country. They had black people to build this country.
They had
an
amazing head start. Not just that, they stole our labor, and that was the amazing thing. But again, a lot of the other things that they appropriated, we don't acknowledge. We don't even know about. Like you point out. The ideas, the agricultural knowledge, the ironworking knowledge. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of that came from Africans.
And then present day, they're still making enormous amounts of money from what? Our athletes and their money, from our artists.
Yes.
That talent, that industry alone. We don't benefit, Salim, enough. It's not much of a reciprocal relationship when our people become wealthy. And we don't really see much of the money trickle back to us. And I'll hang up. And thank you for letting me get that out. I always appreciate your show and the callers, and I enjoy listening, Salim. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Enjoy having you make your contribution. James, hey, my brother.
Hey, brother.
How you doing?
With Al.
All right.
Brother Tommy, watch this. Brother Tommy, the man said don't bring no BS downtown. So there hasn't been no serious demonstration downtown, Brother Tommy, since some young people went down there in support of Larry Hoover.
That's right. Absolutely.
And brother,
they shut down the loop. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
That absolutely terrified the white power structure of this city. They couldn't believe it.
And Brother Tommy, watch this. Gaddafi was going to give Farrakhan some money to try and help us here in the Lion's Den. The man told Farrakhan he couldn't get the money from Gaddafi. There again, Brother Tommy, there was a time to go to some downtown, but Farrakhan didn't go. He went away quietly.
No, he got the money.
No, he didn't get that last bit of money that Gaddafi had offered him. The man told Farrakhan he couldn't get it. I think it was President Clinton.
That's you got the official story, yes, sir.
Oh yeah. It was like $5 billion or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Farrakhan he couldn't get it. Farrakhan said, well, if he can't get that money, he gonna raise holy hell. Well, he didn't raise it. But anyway,
he got the money, brother.
Huh?
He got the money.
Oh, I didn't hear he got that money. Not that.
I know you didn't hear, but he got the money.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, this is a big one now. I know he got, Gaddafi gave him some money before that. But if the last one was a real big one, he was going to give Farrakhan.
Hey, James.
Like
Hey, James.
Yes, sir.
He got the money.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Let me move on to this before we go. I don't understand why a black talk-oriented radio station would have a racist police chief on a regular basis, bring on a racist white supremacist mayor.
Because it's the mayor of the city. And we're residents of the city that they have dominion over.
And when we resident of the city, then why he won't take calls from these residents? What good is it? What good is it to bring a police chief and a mayor here with the problems and issues we're having, and they don't take no call? He might as well stay downtown. What good is that? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
Well, maybe if you have confidence that he will ask the questions that his listeners ask him, that he would have to play that role as a surrogate.
I don't have the confidence because I haven't heard him ask him. And matter of fact, one time, I heard he had the racist police chief on, and the callers had kept bugging the host about asking the racist police chief these questions, and the host did it. And the police chief broke back, hey, what's going on here? Hey, why you asking me all these questions? He wasn't used to that. And the host said, it wasn't me, boss. It was them. They told me, boss. It wasn't me. He said it wasn't me.
Come on, Jane, man, you know that the talk show host has to be congenial and amiable. Man, that's part of the job, brother.
Yeah, but brother, that's an insult to us. I don't understand why management can't see. That is insulting. The mayor went to Israel, brother, for 2 weeks to do some religious ritual with his daughter. 2 2 weeks. He can't come down the road and talk to black people on the phone. We got these buildings being tore down, children shot, police violence, red light cameras, just on and on. You gonna tell me he can go over to Israel for 2 weeks? He can't come and talk to us? Hey man, that's an insult.
So when this station gets a chance to talk to the mayor, we should reject the chance unless he takes calls.
I don't see it as no talk when he parrot the same thing he said on the media. If he parrot the same thing he said on the media, and me and you out here got something we want to bring to him, maybe the host ain't thinking about it. I don't see that as talking to him. I see that as being a puppet of him.
All right.
One last thing, quick before you go.
Go ahead.
Marcus Garvey. Listen, people, for all decent human beings, Marcus Garvey said in the 1920s that if we, as a people, do not
you're gonna have to do
back,
better than that. You're gonna have to quote him. The page.
The book is Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. Yeah. The philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. Okay. I done told you the book is all through there.
But I don't see that quote, man. I look for it, and I have many books on Garvey, but I don't.
God, well, I don't understand why you ain't seen it. It's all through the book. Well, let me say this. Well, the guy that got an organization that honors Marcus Garvey, he'll tell you.
Yes.
That he calls in sometimes.
Shaka.
Yeah, ask Shaka. Ask Shaka. Okay. It's all through the book. But anyway, Garvey said in 1920, if we don't go back and take back Africa, that was his whole movement. He said that's where we came from. Yeah. He said we should go back, take back that land for us and the Africans. He said if we do not, that they was going to slaughter us here, and then they was going to slaughter us.
I have not found any reference to them slaughtering us, and I found nothing of that. No, sir.
You don't see genocide being committed against us?
Well, I don't see Garvey. I don't see that in any of Garvey's statements that he said they will slaughter. I don't see that. You keep mentioning it, but I don't see it.
He said we would be exterminated. He said we would be exterminated here if we do not go back to Africa.
No, sir.
Anyway,
all right, brother, I got you. We got to go, James.
In the 20s, we coming up on 100 years since he said it.
All right, my brother. Thank you, brother James. We should go back and listen to Garvey. We'll be right back. And we're back. Salim MuWakkil on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. First day of March. Time is, doing its thing. And again, we have snow. It is snowing in Chicago again. The snow is accumulating out there as I watch these cars negotiate 87th Street. So that means the records, we've so far been the fourth snowiest winter. I think the snowfall will help us go toward the third snowiest winter. And also, we're up there in terms of the coldest winter. It's truly been a winter to remember in Chicago. Let's go back to the phones. Brother Dwight, Hotep, my brother, how are you, sir?
Hotep. Shelby was hyper. Can you believe that?
He was a hyper kid, boy. I said, wow, Hey, no, for real, Hey.
What a surprise.
Exactly.
Anyway, for those brothers and sisters who criticized me for criticizing the Arabic greeting, I was really trying to criticize my friend who I know very well, work with extensively, was at my house a couple of times this week, as I said, Mr. Wells. He is, one of the most un-Islamic people I ever met. And
so you think he's trying to be? You think he's doing a little ridicule behind the Assalamu Alaikum thing? You think that's part of it?
I'm really not. It kind of sounds like it's a little bit in there, but I'm not really positive that that's what he's doing. But it just sounds so awkward when he does it.
I got you. I hear you. I understand what you mean, man. I hear you. I understand exactly what you mean, my brother.
And after I hung up with you Wednesday, he called me up. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, I'm not so sure that you are correct in stating that Barack Obama has no slave heritage. It's a euphemism of history to say colonialism did not entail slavery. During the two world wars, for instance, the tribal chiefs were required to supply thousands and thousands of soldiers to France, to England, whomever. And that depleted the manpower at home.
Yes, sir.
Yet the foodstuffs that were required to be grown in these colonial regimes were increased to feed the soldiers that were conducting these wars, that were fighting in these wars, and manpower for roads and infrastructure to get this increased produce and the minerals that were required for the war machines. This was all forced labor, and I consider it a euphemism to call it simply forced labor and not slavery, or to call those soldiers slave soldiers.
Well, there may have been some scripted peonage and all that, even indentured servitude, even slavery in terms of unpaid labor. But the history of this country of Africans enslaved in this country is a peculiar and particular history that even someone in Kenya or in colonial regimes who may have shared some of the features of being without autonomy, they didn't share the same features of the chattel slave system in this country and all of the implications of it.
That's absolutely true. But our grandmothers and grandfathers weren't held hostage, with a few of them being sacrificed to show that the master meant business, so that the rest of us would have to go into the bush and collect rubber or what have you. There are features particular to slavery here, and that they didn't go through, and there are features that they went through that we did not have to go through.
But there wasn't a sustained socialization process that occurred over more than a century in Kenya. The Kenyan colonial experience wasn't that long, although it wasn't that sustained. I mean, Kenya had its own autonomy, and it had its own autonomous systems that were going on even as this was happening. So there were there are alternative systems of sustenance going on even while colonialism was happening.
Well, if a person is forced to work, one ancestor is forced to work from.
Okay, all right, I got you, brother. All right, I don't want to get into an ouch contest, but I think the ouches are pretty different. I think the Kenyan experience is different. The point I was making is that someone who had a father from an African country and a mother from this country, and he grew up with a family that was rooted in the American tradition, the white American tradition. He doesn't have slavery in his ancestry, in his heritage.
Well, my point is that when you suffer the way many of the African people suffered, if it was only one generation, I think there's some carryover. Anyway, the president and his new initiative, I don't give him any credibility on it. I didn't watch his speech. I will, probably later on tonight. But his track record of, kind of facetious initiatives toward black people, if any at all, would require us not to take him seriously on this. He's pretty close to lame duck status, and by the time it should be rolled out in full effect, he'll be out of office and it'll be forgotten about, and it'll end up with him doing nothing for us the way he's done nothing for us, even though they claim he did on the black farmers, on the education in the black colleges, and you name it, and he's done. I know you like to say the health care benefits blacks as well as everybody else, and I hope it does. But the homosexuals get the benefit from that, and all the other ethnic groups get the benefit from that, and it doesn't decrease the disparities that we find in all of the social conditions. So, if we aren't gaining any ground under him, I don't think he has the right to claim that some general benefit like health care is something that we should cite as being particularly beneficial to us. Thanks, sir.
All right, Brother Dwight. Thank you, my brother. Yes, sir. I know personally some people who benefited from the health care legislation. Personally, I know folks. So that hits close to home, so to speak. I can point to some benefits, and that's a serious benefit. Health care. I don't think we should diminish that. Many presidents have tried to do it. This is, a jerry-built program, no doubt, man. It gives a lot to the insurance companies, too much, actually, and it should be a single-payer system and all of that. That's true, but this is an improvement, no doubt. This is an improvement, and I've known people, I know people who have benefited already, and that's an improvement. All right, Kay, good evening. How are you, my sister?
Hi, Salim. How are you?
I'm good.
You never disappoint.
All right, good. I'm glad.
You know what I wish?
What's that?
But I don't think he would have the nerve if Rahm Emanuel came and sat in and talked to you, even if he didn't want to talk to the public. That would be a good, interesting conversation.
Hey, I was on I've been on 2 shows with Rahm before he was before he even went to Washington. He was still kind of a local guy. And I was on a show. I was on the Dumont show with him back in the day. I wonder if he remembers. We talked about jazz at the time.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Well, I mean, now that he's, if black people don't get it together, he's going to be there for the next 20 years, like
you may be right. It's up to him, unless he wants to, take a little safari and do another campaign somewhere.
Yeah. You know how they had white flight to the suburbs?
Yes.
Under his reign, you're going to have white flight to the city.
Back to the cities. That's what he wants. That's kind of his calling card. Bring them back. He wants the cities to undergo a rebirth, and in order for that to happen, they have to attract they have to attract populations that people covet, that advertisers covet, that real estate developers covet, and that means rich white people.
You had said 2 things. I always meant 2 things. You had said something that I was just kind of interested in. You said that African Americans are fragmented. Well, I think any black in the diaspora is fragmented. Afro-Latinos, Afro-Caribbeans, and it's very, I think maybe until the last 20 years ago, if you wanted to insult someone, you call them an African, or you begin it with you're black this, you're black that. I remember those days.
I remember those were fighting words.
But now, people are claiming Africa who's never been there.
Well, they're still, from what I understand, in some neighborhoods, they're still fighting words.
Oh,
in the
okay.
Black community, they don't play African. They don't like to be called African, even now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just gonna go from my experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just remember that. And it's just the way we've just so internalized self-hate. I don't think any other race of people insult. Well, I don't know, but it would be interesting to have a conversation with an Asian person. They wouldn't say you're Asian this, but back in the old days it'd be you're black this, you're black that. I mean, and it's black people. That what was just so amazing to me. I have never had a white person use those kind of. I mean, I've had bad bouts with white people. Obviously, but I've never had it where. If I see an argument with a black person, it would be, you're nappy-headed this. And I'm like, you got nappy-headed.
Right, that's right. That's
self-hate. This is what I mean.
You called it perfectly. We are socialized for self-hatred. Self-abnegation is a part of our identity. That's why when I say African-American as a hyphenated identity, those are dueling identities as well as dual identities. The African was at war with the American in our psyche for many years. And that's, as you point out, we didn't like ourselves. We didn't like the African side of ourselves. We called it names. We considered it uncivilized. And that's why, the 60s was such a pivotal period. And when we finally acknowledged that part of our identity, that African part of our identity, and that made us whole for the first time, really. And we're still struggling with that.
That's why I like Dorothy Tillman. I don't know if you ever listen to her show.
I do.
But she say, take a deep breath.
Back.
Yeah, it's just so relieving. Okay. But, it's interesting to piggyback on what your other callers were talking about when they said the fancy girls. I think in Louisiana they were called plaisage.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly
and
right.
But what I don't.
Are you from Louisiana?
No.
Okay.
I'm African. Well, I've never been there, but
But I mean, Louisiana is that's where Congo Square was.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But with what I don't understand is that when white people, if you read like Cotton Mather's books and how he would, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't finish it. It was just a bit much for me. It's just very hard to read what white people did to black people. As a black person.
No,
and
it is.
So,
You're right.
and so I don't understand why white people get upset about it when you weren't systematically destroyed. Everything that
because it makes nobody likes to feel guilty, and a lot of white Americans think that this is a guilt trip that's being laid on them, and in a sense it is. It has to be, but they don't have to. I don't think they should take it seriously, really. I mean, or personally. Seriously, yes, but not personally. It's not an indictment of you. It's an indictment of a system that your ancestors helped perpetrate and perpetuate and
benefit from.
And you
even
benefit from it too.
Day.
And we have to, that's a system that we were bequeathed. So we have to deal with the injustices that are incorporated into that bequeathal. We have to deal with them, or else they'll continue. And it doesn't mean it's not against you. It's nothing personal, my man. But you gotta get in on this, or you're gonna be left out.
Okay, well, I'm going to do my stage right, so another one can get
Thank you, Kate.
Have their 5 minutes of fame.
Yes, man. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. Sister K, my brother Simbini. Hey, how you doing, brother?
I am going to have to correct you twice.
Okay.
You ended a sentence with a preposition, and I know you know better.
I should know better.
You said,
what was that?
Something about the mayor. He's the head of the city. something about he has dominion over. And it should have been said over which he has dominion. And I'm going to correct you again. Just on the personal level, I am not a hyphenated person.
You're not hyphenated?
No, sir.
All right.
I cannot be a continent country at the same time, no matter what dual experience I've had. You've been... Salim, I almost don't want to tell you this.
Two continents, African American.
Okay, my youngest sister said to me 4 days ago that she believes white people are smarter than black people. And she backed it up.
You can understand why, though, right? I don't see why most. Don't you think that most black children feel that? Or come to that conclusion?
I can't make. See, if I make a statement like that, or if I read a statement, I have to see some evidence of it. Whether the evidence is true or not. That is
absolutely correct. You're absolutely right. But what I should have said is, doesn't it seem to you as if black people, it's a natural process for black people to feel, black children to feel that way because of what they're presented with in public media?
Well, I didn't say anything to her that day. I waited 2 or 3 days later, and I asked her about her statement. I said, what do you think a white person would say if you told them you think that you believe that white people are smarter than blacks? She said she think the person would smile, ask her for a date, and agree with her. Now, I don't know where the date came in. I hope baby sister.
How old is she?
I'll be 54 Monday. She's a year behind me. She'll be 53 6 days after I'm 54.
Okay. Wow. So I thought you were talking about somebody young.
She believes she's young.
Okay.
Well, when I had the conversation with her, I told her that I didn't hear this and I didn't see it. It was told to me that George Shultz was interviewed. He was real young, former Secretary of State, and the person interviewing him said, if blacks cannot run governments, if they cannot run corporations, if they cannot run families, why is it necessary to keep infiltrating their movements, assassinating their leaders, flooding the communities with drugs? And here's what I was told George Shultz said. Sir, we know that these people are descendants of people who brought civilization, culture, music, medicine, architecture to the world. Well, we see how they responded to being mistreated when they were asking for civil rights and equal justice. We also see that at certain points they've made advances to the world that no other people have done under a favorable condition, and they were under the yoke of some sort of oppression. His last part of the statement is devastating, but I believe that all white people feel this way. He said, sir, we don't know where this came from, but we will damn sure see that it never rises again. I asked my sister, I said, does that sound like somebody that's smarter than you? She said, that sounds like somebody that's afraid. I said, yes. I said, now, they may be smarter than blacks. I don't know. And especially given the fact that blacks keep sending their children, progeny, and going themselves to institutions run, operated, and controlled by them. I said, but don't quote me on that, because still I don't know if that's etched in stone. I said, but just because you're smarter, it doesn't mean you will win. That's from the Art of War. Just because you're a superior force doesn't mean you will win either. Ken Norton beat Ali in the first fight. I think it's clear to anybody looking at both fighters that Ali was a superior fighter, but he lost the first fight and got his jaw broken. But what he did was he looked at the fight, saw that it wasn't so much as what Ken Norton did as what he didn't do. Ken Norton was instructed to keep working on Ali's left shoulder for the first 4 rounds because that's his money punch, the jab. And Ali couldn't deliver his jab the way he normally could. But Ali came back and he won the next 2 fights. And so I'm going to just end with telling you this. Last week, a caller called in and playing what I call point counterpoint. He followed me from one radio station to the next. And essentially, he instructed me about his knowledge of the Bible, that he knows what certain words like void and whatnot mean in the Bible. I don't know how he can know the Bible when he's not the author of it, unless he's the author of it, but I doubt that. And you know, just knowing the Bible, I guess that's good for him, but how about knowing how to build a stealth bomber? How about knowing how to get with other so-called blacks and putting commercial, industrial, residential strips that you own, operate, and control in the community? See, instead of just sitting back watching the crime and then talking about the youth or whoever's committing the crime, Salim, and I respectfully submit to you and your audience that I think blacks may have sold themselves the notion that there isn't anything that they can do. Now, I hear one of my brothers calling in, James, and he just is over. That's coming from him. Mm-hmm. He may be right. I don't know. Time will tell. But as a former boxer, if I go in the ring and say it's over, then it is over, because I'm not going to do anything to make it not over.
That's exactly right.
I say it's not over. I say black people are productive enough to adjust to their own affairs. And I'm just going to leave you with a line from the Temptations masquerading as the Flamingos. Are you familiar with the song "I Ain't Got Nothing"?
Yes.
Okay, they're doing that. They were highly influenced by the Flamingos, according to Otis Williams. Mm-hmm. And right now, it seems like so-called black people don't have nothing, but they do have something. They have a mind. They have each other. I think all that they need is the will to do what needs to be done. And as I look all over the city of Chicago, Salim, I looked in the telephone book under groceries and called all the stores. Mm-hmm. All of them are owned by either Arabs or Arab-sounding people, and they all kept asking me who am I and what I wanted, because I think they're doing things like selling loose cigarettes and strange things to, well, I won't say the last part. Carry on, Salim.
All right, my brother. I think what Sambini is saying, that a lot of these Arab stores are trying to get our women, young women. They're angling for our young women by offering material goods, that kind of thing. I think that's what he was on the verge of saying. Torrance, good evening. You're on the Talk of Chicago. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Salim. How are you?
I'm well, man. Well.
Hey, man, I appreciate you connecting the dots the way you do, man.
Thank you,
Nobody else does it like you.
Thank you, brother.
I wanted to share a couple of links or websites with some of your listeners, as well as make a comment. Last week you were speaking of encouraging our youth, particularly our really young people, to read.
Yes, sir.
And there's a source. It's called booksbyu.com. Something I've done with my daughter. Mm-hmm. And what you do, basically what they do is they include your child into the story. Okay? So they put your child's name, and then they have the dog in there, they'll have you in there, and they'll have, whoever you put into there, they'll incorporate them into the story. And then they'll put their picture on the back of the cover of the paperback book. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, that person is the author. So your child is the author of the book. Mm-hmm. And again, it's booksbyu.com.
Booksbyu.com. All right.
Yes.
I like that, man. I like
and, it's something that, my daughter would look forward to receiving Christmas. I used to give her a book.
How old is your daughter?
She's 13.
Okay.
And now she reads man, she's 13 years old, and she just wrote a report, man, on what was that? That was on driving while black.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. So right. That's deep, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, man. But again, that's something I wanted to share with some of your listeners. Another link that I wanted to share with some of your listeners, or website, is the National Institute of Justice. Mm-hmm. What they are the research arm for the Department of Justice. Mm-hmm. Okay? And what they do is they have grants for research that they're seeking to conduct. Mm-hmm. Thanks for the proposal up there, and then you have to respond with your with your proposal. They put a request for proposal. You have to respond with your proposal. For instance, they have one up there with, W.E.B. Du Bois right now. And it may be something that some of your listeners may be interested in, because they're asking for research related to the criminal justice system and how it affects blacks. Okay?
All right.
So some of your listeners, man, they may be able to get some funding through there. And I think that it would be important if they at least attempted to do it, because earlier you were talking about, Barack Obama, I mean President Obama, and how he may not be as in tune with the black experience because he does not have slavery in his background. Earlier this week, I sent you a link, and I think you saw it, and you listened to it. In that link, it had some speeches as well as some music by a band called US3.
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Claude Anderson, he pointed out a couple of things. One, he pointed out that the first people here in America were, in fact, from Africa, were the Folsom people. Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. So, that would suggest that, we just didn't come here through slavery. He also pointed out that Arabs preceded Europeans in enslaving black folks. Okay? And with that being the case, it's highly possible that although President Obama may not have a direct linkage like many of us here do to slavery, that there is probably a linkage somewhere with slavery. But you got to understand something. His wife has that linkage. His children have that linkage.
Right, exactly.
And so
you know something? I'm not one to even say that linkage is all that important in terms of his policies.
There we go. That's
I don't think it's important for him to. The LBJ didn't have an ounce of black blood in him, and he was probably the best president in terms of policies for African Americans. So I don't think it's necessary. I'm just saying that his cultural heritage lacks the same kind of features that most African Americans' cultural heritage contains.
And that's a fact. Okay, but at the same time, I think that you just hit upon the point where I was leading to, and that is policies.
Yes.
And when you look at earlier, your brother said that he wasn't from Chicago, so he doesn't really know. And I would respond to that with, well, you don't really have to be in Chicago to really know, because the same type of issues that's facing Chicago are facing practically every major city in this country.
Yes,
okay?
Sir. But I think in that particular case, we're talking about the Black Star Project. And
I understand.
Yeah, and how most people from Chicago are aware of the Black Star Project and its great work that it's been doing. And that's why a lot of people were surprised that he just kind of looked over the Black Star Project and trying to award some grants for this stuff.
Well, see, it doesn't surprise me. And the reason why it doesn't surprise me is because, getting back to what you're talking about, the policies, okay? Yeah. All the issues that are facing Chicago are the same type. You find almost the exact same issues facing Tampa Bay, okay?
That's right.
Let's say Tampa. Now, it is impossible for that just to happen. And the reason why is because you have different cultures of people, you have different weathers, you have different... Everything that, for the most part, influences a person are different, okay? What is the same are the institutions. Those are the same. And those institutions, being the criminal justice system, being through education, being through health, those are the same. And what you have are policies being driven through those institutions. They base these policies upon, I shouldn't say base, I should say justify, okay? They justify these policies based upon the research. And much of that research occurs through the link I just shared with your listeners, the National Institute of Justice. And I submit that we don't have enough presence in this research. And
I agree. But I don't think the National Institute of Justice is the venue that we. I hear your point, brother, and I think that the research you're talking about, though, is coming from think tanks, from right-wing think tanks like the American Enterprise Institute, the Heritage Foundation, Cato Institute.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
And I think that we lack similar think tanks on the left to produce other kinds of policy options. That's where we lack. I don't think we can go through the National Institute of Justice because that's linked into the governmental apparatus. But I think if we go outside with think tanks and begin to try to influence the government in the same way that the right wing has done with its think tanks, we will be a lot more efficient.
Well, those policies through the research that comes through the National Institute of Justice. I'm not disagreeing with you, okay? In fact, I would suggest that a lot of the funding that goes to those organizations are coming through government funding like the National Institute of Justice, okay, to justify, again, some of their policies.
Well, some of it may be, but I just want to interrupt again, Torrance, is that one of the reasons for these think tanks is because they wanted to have an independent source of intellectual currency that was outside of the government. That was an intentional development put in motion by something called a Lewis Powell memo in 1971. Okay. And that's why we have like the Heritage Foundation and what they try to do is to influence policy through intellectual warfare, through intellectual
like the bell curve, like the book The Bell Curve. Yeah,
yes, sir.
Yes, and I agree with you. But tying this all back to this new program that the president just submitted.
My Brother's Keeper.
Yeah, My Brother's Keeper. I believe, and it's my opinion, that the president is more tied to the Democratic Party than he is to black folks.
Yes, sir. I think you have I think your opinion is well based. Let me put it that way.
Okay, and with that being the case, there are the dearth of representation of black folks' interest are not coming through, or is how should I put it?
It's being blocked by the interests of the party. I agree, brother. Thank you, Torrance. I got to go and try to get these folks
okay, man. I appreciate
on the air before we finish up. Thank you, Torrance. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to Imani. Hey, my brother, how are you, sir?
Assalamu alaikum. All praise to God.
Walaikum salam.
Community.
All right, thank you.
Very quickly, because I know you're short of time,
yes,
as
sir.
usual. One is that I don't, Mr. Obama is a lame duck. So that's whatever he's done, that's done. And I do agree with you about the Medicare thing. That was very well, it was good for poor people, our own people, black, brown, whatever.
Yes, sir, I think so.
Secondly, Mr. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, James brought him up. My brother James, I greet you in peace. James brought him up. We need to remember the chapters. When we have studies of Marcus Garvey, give the chapter, give or whatever it is. Give the chapter you can read and find out.
Yes, sir, absolutely. That's what I want him to do, because I have a lot of Garvey literature and read it frequently, but I haven't seen anything in there.
Right. And Philosophy and Opinions, that's the greatest book in the world for a man to have, or a woman to have on her shelf, and to read it. Carefully read it. Thirdly, we must not talk about the problems that we have, but go ahead and finish filling the glass. The glass is half filled, finish filling it. That's out. The people who are out in these large organizations and whatnot who are just black people, let them do the best. We got to do what we got to do. Because we capture our communities, we capture our banks, we capture our businesses, and support them. You have people calling every night, every day about, something that black people ain't doing. Okay, then. Well, then how much money you have in a black bank? How much money do you have down at the federal loans, federal savings loans over on King Drive? You have $1 in a black bank.
Yes, sir.
You have to look at it before you put the problem on somebody else.
All right, brother. I hear you. I hear you. Personally, thank you, Brother Imani. I'm going to have to let you go because I want to get some other folks. Thank you, brother. Good point. Brother Kalen. Hey, how you doing, Kalen?
Hello, man. Good evening.
Pardon me?
I said, how are you this evening?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Okay. When you talk to that Monday,
you breaking up a little bit, brother. Is there something you can do about that?
No, it's new phone, so.
I'm gonna have to let you go, Kalen. I can't go with that breakup thing. Mr. Wells, hey, my brother, how are you?
That's an Obama phone he was on.
Oh, see, you say that again now.
The brother was on an Obama phone. No, real talk, Salim. Quick question here. Let me get up out of here. When are we going to hear a move from being a black apologist on behalf of what we're seeing as policy out of this gentleman? Because I can go back to 2007 confronting this notion, and I took a lot of heat going on 7 years ago about this gentleman that's in the White House now. I took a lot of heat in Cincinnati. I mean, really, I was the only activist when he came here getting money way back in February of 2007, critical of this gentleman and his record. I'm telling you, took a lot of heat for a long time for taking an oppositional view. My question is, when will we move away from this apologist, mixed message, confused deception, to having some action to, if this gentleman is a lame duck, what do you do to correct that?
Did you see the piece? Did you see the piece in Harper's, man, by Adolph Reed?
No, I did.
Nothing left. There's nothing left. His complaint is that there's no left wing opposition to the president.
I'm gonna leave and ask you a question. You say there's progress in the health care?
I do say that. Yes, sir. I say that because I know personally someone who is now covered, who wasn't covered before, and now they have health care. I mean, they have medical insurance. I won't say they have health care.
Yeah, I would hope that we wouldn't confuse temporary, selfish successes with long-term outcomes.
Well, I'm not trying to confuse it. I'm just saying that there's some people I know who actually have health insurance now. They didn't have it before. That's progress.
Hey, Salim, on Wednesday, hopefully we can talk about this issue with the black colleges getting the money to do obesity research, which is garbage. I didn't hear too much dialogue about tonight. Vilsack said it was a victory. It was doing the grants to the HBCUs on agricultural research, but it was connected to this obesity premise. Hopefully on Wednesday we can get into some of that conversation.
All right, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Wells. All right, let's go to Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. Is this your first time?
Yes.
Hey, welcome. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was highly disappointed in the 51-year-old who made that statement about thinking she was not as smart as white people. I came from a similar background as Barack Obama. The only difference, of course, is both of my parents are black, but I was an honor student with his wife at Whitney Young. I started college at 16. I excelled past most all of the white, Indian, Mexicans in my class. I'm trying to think of all the different nationalities that were in the class with me and Michelle Obama. And so I am just so disappointed in this 51-year-old making that statement.
I didn't know it was a 51-year-old either. I thought when Sabini first said it, I thought it was a young kid or something, who had raised
right. But
I can understand that, but
that she doesn't have a broad upbringing. My parents did not go to college, but they gave me the hunger for knowledge, even though they did not go to college. And so the child has to have the hunger within themselves, and so apparently this woman doesn't have it, doesn't believe in it, and perhaps came from a background of people. And it doesn't even matter whether they were black or not. If you come from a people who don't believe in education, the color is irrelevant. I have white friends who are not nowhere near as intelligent as my 10-year-old. Yes. So, it's amazing how people think that it has something to do with the color of your skin. It has absolutely zero to do with the color of your skin.
It is absolutely amazing, but they wrote books on it. You know, I'm sure you remember the bell curve. And that's only the latest iteration of this heritage.
Yeah, I think it's to believe this because my girlfriends excelled. I even have black male friends that have excelled past every race, not just one. When I say, I don't mean to say people always pin us together with black and white, but I see other races.
Equitable situation. You look at Britain. The highest aggregate IQ of all Britons are from Afro-Brits.
Yes.
So, I mean, that alone should help people understand that IQ and intelligence is not limited or in any kind of a handicap because of racial identity.
Exactly. I think the problem for most of the people in Illinois and in most of these states are that the public school system is teaching them that, society is teaching them that. And it's sad. It's sad. It's frustrating for people who know better.
Absolutely.
It really is sad and frustrating. And a lot of the things that people are saying on your station today about Barack Obama is disheartening to me also. It really
is disheartening.
If they only knew.
Yes.
Because, see, one of his greatest people, the heroes that he had was Harold Washington. I work with Harold Washington, and he kind of thought, and he made statements saying, he wanted to be as articulate as he is, as educated as he is, and he made the point of trying to be that. And so you got to be proud of him. The
president wrote a foreword to the book I wrote on Harold. I'm familiar with his opinions on Harold Washington, but a lot of people say, a lot of folks say that Harold Washington could never be president of this country, but Barack Obama would probably never be mayor of Chicago. Harold Washington couldn't be president, but Barack couldn't be mayor because Harold had a appeal to black people that unashamed, unapologetic. And pretty stridently black. The president has to keep that.
I do have a problem with Barack being apologetic. Some of the things I would just not apologize for. I'd be more like Daley, where he went down and he tore up Meg's field, and then waited to apologize after it was all over. But I would do whatever it is that I need to do to get it done, and they would have never been able to shut down the United States.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate it.
I'm really disappointed on.
Please call again, please. Thank you. Let's go to Andrew. Hey, Andrew, how you doing, my bro?
Hey, hello, Brother Salim. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
All right, I'll keep this brief.
Yes,
I consider you to be a very knowledgeable person about the subject of slavery, so I have a couple of important questions I'd like to ask you. I'll make it brief. Okay. Needless to say, people of English descent and French descent and Portuguese descent enslaved our people. I met a sister years ago who was from Cuba, and she had made a statement to me years ago. She said, Andrew, we were talking about, the difference between black Americans and the Hispanic Americans, and, some Hispanic blacks, and she had said to me, she said, Andrew, she said, the only difference between you and me is the slave master. She said, the slave master of your specific ancestors were white Anglo-Saxons, whereas the slave master of my ancestors were Spaniards. Would it be correct to say that people enslaved on the islands of Cuba and Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic were enslaved by Spaniards?
Yes, it would be.
Would it be correct to say that they were conquistadors?
It would absolutely be correct.
I see. Okay.
Yes, and she had it right. That's the only difference. The master of the slave. I mean, the nationality of the master, slave master.
Okay, so the bottom line is this: with regards to black Americans, we were enslaved by people of English descent, Irish, and German descent.
Yes.
Whereas,
for the most part, Protestant. That made a difference as well.
Right.
The people in the Caribbean and in Latin America were enslaved by Catholics. There was a little nuance there that's different.
But the bottom line is people from again islands like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic, they were enslaved by Spanish conquistadors.
Yes, sir.
And one more thing, very quickly, I'll make it quick. Didn't Lerone Bennett Jr. say that there were some Africans who migrated here to this country intentionally?
Yes. And the many, before the Mayflower, there are many books that document our presence on this continent long before the slave trade began.
And isn't it true that the first slave ship that set foot on North American shores took place around the year 1620?
1619, they say, to be more precise, in Jamestown Colony. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, Andrew.
All right,
wish
thank
we had
you, my
more
brother.
time, man. I wish we had more time for the other callers, too. I couldn't get you all in. I try. Make sure you stay tuned for my brother Linnell Harris and his inspirational perspectives. And we will talk to you again, let's see, Monday morning with Matt. And then, of course, Wednesday and next Saturday, we will join you again. I hope that you got out of this session what I've got out of. I wanted to get a little bit more into Adolph Reed's critique of the American left and how that has, impoverished our struggle for equitable resources, for equitable allocation of resources, the kind of struggle that African Americans once were famous for and have inspired others to engage in. How people now are saying that they've taken their cues from the African American struggle. And the reason why we seem to be withering on the vine is because we don't have that kind of ideological inspiration any longer. The left is not there. Nothing left.